Hey everybody, welcome to the third video in the squat series. The first one's going to be active range of motion. Second one's looking at foot optimization and ankle mobility. If you haven't watched those videos, trust me, go back and watch them now. It's so important that you understand those concepts before coming to this one. So the third piece in the squatting puzzle is going to be internal and external rotation of the hip. So if you lack rotation or mobility at your hip, you're always going to start getting back pain and often knee pain as well. So when it comes to knee pain, it's either from the foot or the hip. It's seldom the knee. So if you're someone who's experiencing knee pain when you squat, start looking at your feet and your hips. So Will's going to show us what internal and external rotation looks like at the hip. So first I'm going to show you this. So if I pull my hip up into flexion and I rotate this way, my hip rotated externally. If I come this way and I go this way, which my internal rotation stinks, it's called internal rotation of the hip. So how do we assess that? Well, literally this, right? Do I have internal external rotation at the hip at 90 degrees of hip flexion? Do I have it here at minimal hip flexion, right? So looking at those different positions is important in assessing what your body has access to. If your range of motion gets smaller and smaller and smaller at the hip, you will always start to transfer into your back and knees. So show us what your internal external rotation looks like there, Will. Good. Decent external rotation on the right side, go the external. Or the internal. So he's hiking that hip up a little bit. So he's trying to cheat. He's trying to be an overachiever. Like, oh, I have this really good range. When he doesn't, go to the other side. So let's go external. Good external. About the same as the other side. Go internal. Pretty locked up. And again, he's hiking the hip. So, but they're about the same. That's a good place to be. The typical injury will happen if one is really good and one is really bad. You're going to get big rotational things happening. So Will's going to go into a 90-90 floor sit first. So if you notice this floor sit, this leg is externally rotated at 90 degrees. This one's internally rotated at 90 degrees. The ideal scenario is Will's able to sit there without having to put his hands down. Can you do that, Will? Good. So ideally his spine is straight. If it's not, chances are he's lacking mobility at this back hip. So I just want you to think about pushing into the floor gently with your foot, Will. And it's super gentle. It's this very specific contraction. It's not anything hard. And then he's actually going to try to lift his foot up off the ground, which is extremely challenging. But you're intentionally going to do that. Good. Now do it again. We'll push into the ground. We're just going to contract, relax, and every time he exhales, he relaxes. He's going to try to sit up a little bit straighter. That's a nice, easy way to start with this internal rotation limitation. Good. Try the other side. So by working the back leg, we're emphasizing improving internal rotation, which is what he had a deficit in. So make sure that knee's at 90 degrees. Good. So you notice his range of motion is significantly worse on this side. So he's leaning a lot more. He can't actually take his hand up off the ground. Yep. So good. Just try. And now breathing is an important thing here too, right? Your breath rate or the respiration rate is very indicative of the tone of the autonomic nervous system. If you're hypertense, you want to learn to just relax on every time so you contract and then relax and let your entire body just relax. Let that breath out. Good. So we're emphasizing internal rotation on that hip, but this leg is also an external rotation, so we can actually increase the range here, the mobility here. And now remember, this isn't stretching. This is contract, relax, contract, relax. So we're trying to improve active range of motion, not passive range of motion. Stretching before you squat is a terrible idea. It's going to lead to injuries. So let's see what it looks like to emphasize this leg a little bit. So if you just push this knee into the ground and try to contract that glute, slowly with the knee, and now let the foot follow it by pushing the foot in the ground a little bit as well. Good. So we're trying to contract on this glute. It's a very specific contraction. And then when you relax that glute, try to just bring your body around a little bit. Now that leg can straighten out behind you. So Will got himself into a bit of an uncomfortable position here, but so trying to get that hip into external rotation and really let that glute start to loosen up. We're going to go do a contract, relax in that glute. Now he's not intentionally trying to get to 90 degrees at his knee. I'm not so worried about it. We'll push that knee into the ground just a little bit, Will, just so it's a really specific contraction. See if you can feel the glute actually turn up. And I want you to do this for 3 or 4 times. So it's a contract for about 3, just so you can feel the glute turn on and then turning it off. Good, let's try the other side. Good. So now Will's obviously a big guy and getting these positions isn't always easy. So and so we're not trying to fall into the position. The goal isn't to get his chest to the ground. The goal is to have his hip actively internally rotate at that hip. Yeah, so we don't want to just fall into a position. Notice his spine is still straight. So the only thing we're really challenging here is the mobility at his hip joint on the right side. Now, if we get really advanced, we can start doing internal rotation with this hip, but and contract on that glute. There you go. So you'll feel that hip flexor lengthen and that glute lengthen. Good, so internal external rotation is massive when it comes to squatting. If you're getting back pain, if you're getting knee pain, that's usually the third place I would look, is maybe even earlier in the chain, but certainly make it one of the things you look at. If you lack internal external rotation, doing some things that are contract and relax based, so as I said, coming into these kind of pigeon style positions where you're engaging into the floor and relaxing. So it's a contraction, pushing into it, as you can see my body move, and then I relax. And I contract, and then I relax. And trying to allow it to go a little bit further into those positions is a really good way to activate that muscle and then lengthen it. So you're teaching the nervous system to contract and relax, and contract and relax. And eventually that range will get bigger and bigger and bigger, allow you to access more range with control and less discomfort.